Do not just take the money. Delta Airlines recently offered $30,000 to 76 passengers that were on a flight that crash landed in Toronto. The money is tax-free. Is Delta Airlines doing this as a gesture of good faith, or is it a publicity stunt to gain some goodwill? Tactics most insurance companies are starting to use is they reach out to people immediately after an accident and offer a settlement. In this particular case, Delta Airlines claims there are no strings attached, but if there is a potential settlement down the road, $30,000 payout will be deducted from the final resolution. Here's what happened. Delta Airlines Flight 4819 was en route from Minneapolis to Toronto. While it was coming in for a landing, the plane flipped over, and the people were hanging in their seats like bats. There were 4 crew and 76 passengers. Luckily, no one died, but people did get hurt. So in a preemptive move, Delta has offered those passengers $30,000, supposedly as a gesture of goodwill, saying they can use it towards medical expenses to pay their bills or whatever they want to. Whether or not these passengers should take the money, or whether or not someone else who has been in an accident is offered a settlement without any investigation, without knowing all the facts, should really know what the payout entails. You may not know if the offer is adequate for what you've endured. Whether or not Delta is legally obligated to make this offer is irrelevant. So in any lawsuit for damages or injuries, there always needs to be 3 factors in place to be successful. Number 1, there has to be negligence or liability on an individual or a company. Number 2, there has to be actual damages or injuries caused as a result of the individual or company's neglect. And number 3, there has to be a deep pocket. You have to have the ability to collect if you win 1 and 2. So let's talk about liability. Airlines have a duty to get their passengers to a location safe and sound, period. A passenger in any scenario has no liability. They did nothing wrong. The only defenses Delta could possibly have is either there was an emergency situation which was created and beyond their control completely, or there was some mechanical malfunction that they had no idea of anticipating and they did not know about it. In the case of the crash landing in Toronto, I doubt Delta will be able to come up with some sort of defense. There had to be pilot error in landing this plane. Now, when it comes to damages or injuries, I cannot imagine what the passengers on this plane must have been thinking, what they must have been feeling, and then what they were going through as this was all unfolding. Psychological injuries and emotional distress can be big, big claims. However, they have to be accompanied with some sort of physical injury. In New York, you cannot just bring a claim for emotional distress in most situations. They need to be accompanied by some physical injury or trauma as well, and you need medical documentation in order to prove the claim of the injury and the emotional distress claim. So how do you do this? Obviously, the passengers or anyone who's individual needs to go to a doctor and get medical treatment. The sooner you go for treatment after the incident, the better it is for your case and the more believable the claims are. Insurance companies and defendants will never just take your word for it. And if you go to trial, you need medical testimony and medical evidence to prove your injury claims, whether they're physical or psychological. And no matter how traumatizing this event may be, if you don't see a professional to document your claims and be able to come to court and testify as to how harrowing this actually is and how it has affected your life, your ability to sleep, your ability to eat, your fear of getting on planes or in a car or anything else in the future, you're not going to be able to sustain an award if a jury were to give you one. In fact, a judge could outright dismiss your case because you don't have the proof to be able to substantiate a case. Finally, there needs to be a deep pocket in order to pay on these claims. Usually, that's an insurance company. In this case, I don't know if Delta had insurance or they had some insurance and they're self-insured up to a certain limit. I don't know the details, but Delta, I imagine, is a deep pocket. A payout of $30,000 to 76 passengers right off the bat amounts to a payment of over $2 million. So like I said, in every case, You need to establish liability, damages, and a deep pocket to be able to pay. In this case of the Delta airline crash landing, those passengers have those elements. And whether or not the $30,000 payout is truly a no strings attached offer, you need to consult an attorney. These passengers need to consult with an attorney for a number of reasons. First of all, because the flight was going from Minneapolis to Toronto, it's governed by the Montreal Convention, which governs passenger rights. So you would need a lawyer who is familiar with the Montreal Convention, your passenger rights, and who can review whatever documents Delta is asking you to sign in exchange for getting the payment of $30,000 tax-free. Because I am sure they are not just issuing a check and saying, here you go, have a nice day. You need to make sure you are not waiving any future rights. You need to speak to somebody about your psychological claims, if there are any. You need to speak to somebody about your physical claims, if there are any, how this will affect you in the future, what your future medical expenses may end up being, how this will affect your ability to work, enjoy time with your family, and do the very little things that give you enjoyment of life on a day-to-day basis. Lawsuits are supposed to accomplish two things. One, to hold the responsible party accountable for their actions. Number two, to make you whole. Now, no amount of money in the world can make somebody who's injured whole, technically, but that is the concept behind a lawsuit. We do not live in a society where it is an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. The only remedy people have when they are injured through the neglect of others is a monetary one. So it is important to find an attorney who is familiar with the laws that govern your situation, whether it's an airline crash, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a construction accident, whether it's a fall, whether it's a nursing home neglect case, whether it's a funeral home neglect case. You need to find an attorney who is familiar with the laws pertaining to your situation. They need to know your rights. They need to explain your rights to you, and they need to explain to you the ramifications of accepting a settlement offer or a payment with no strings attached, because they could have significant consequences on the end result and affect your rights. If you or a loved one have been injured as a result of any type of accident, ring Rizzuto. We can help. And if we can't, we will find you somebody that can. You can call us at 855-RIZZUTO, RIZZUTO. Visit our website at rizzutolaw.com. And if you found any of this information helpful or useful, leave a comment. Tell me if you would accept the $30,000 or what you would do if you were in this situation, and follow us for more. And I will see you there.